All right, let's go to Genesis 3:15.
Genesis 3:15 is that great text where after the first tragedy came upon the whole human race, God gives a glimmer of light. And that first tragedy was what we call the fall. Adam and Eve partook of the fruit and therefore failed the test that God had set up. In the midst of all of the negative statements there, that is the judgments that were to come upon the human race, especially because of their involvement here, all of a sudden, like daylight, there breaks out this marvelous phrase. God says, I will put enmity between you, that is the serpent, and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. And he will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Well, now, first, this sounds very, very enigmatic. You wonder, what in the world is going on here? First of all, I should tell you that the word enmity here is always person-to-person hostility. It's only found 5 times, but it's always between persons and people. My suspicions are here that we're dealing with the serpent. It's always found with the article, Han-Nahash, the serpent, that old dragon, the one who is known in the book of Revelation as the devil. And I take it here that he has a line of people that are his offspring, his seed, his descendants, and the woman has her line. But then suddenly, God, who puts hostility, 1, the serpent versus the woman, 2, and then his offspring, 3, versus her offspring, 4. That seems like, well, you say, I suppose that they're really sort of, there's an antipathy that's built in there. Then we're surprised all of a sudden by 4a. 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4, and then all of a sudden, wow, out of the text comes 4a, a male descendant of this woman. And this one is going to be nipped in the heel, but on the other hand, he'll turn around and tread on the skull of the serpent. Now, nipping in the heel is bad enough, but crushing the skull is somewhat damaging. I would think it's lethal. And so you have a pattern here that is built from the very beginning. God is going to send his Messiah through the seed of a woman. You say, well, did they really understand this? You might be reading this in. I must tell you that the Greek translation done in the 3rd century BC, as John has been mentioning here, they broke the rules of grammar agreement here in order to show that they understood that this was a male descendant of the woman. There are rules of agreement in Greek which are precise, observed in all the rest of the book of Genesis, broken once here in pre-Christian times, 300 years before Yeshua, Jesus of Messiah, appeared on the scene. And it is said here that this one is to be born from a woman, the seed of a woman, not from the seed of a man. And that also contains a mystery God will elaborate on a little later on.
Why did the King James Version at that point goof and put it?
Oh, I think that they were a little chicken, I suppose is the technical scholarly word. And they just didn't want to come out full blown. And some others have said she there at that point. But the Hebrew is clear. The Hebrew word is who, he. The third person singular pronoun, you can't miss it. He comes across. You could translate that it or he, but it still is clear from context that it has to be a male descendant.
Okay, and also there's a tip-off that Eve thought it that way as well, because in 4:1, doesn't she make a statement that shows that?
That's exactly where I was headed. How did you know? In 4:1, there's an interesting kind of statement here, because Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain, and she said, I have got man. She makes a little play here on it. She names him Got because she says, I've gotten the man. She calls him Cain because she says, I've caned the man, if you want to put it in English. But little pun there. I enjoy it. You may not. But I like that. That's a blessing to me. And then she says, I've gotten a man, even the Lord. Technically, the Hebrew text just says v'et, and then it has the tetragrammaton, which some pronounce, others will not. If you don't pronounce it, it's Adonai. So I've gotten a man, the Lord. When Luther translated this, he didn't say, I've gotten a man with the help of, as most of our English texts will say here. But those words, you say, yes, but they're in italics. They must be important. That's where the Holy Spirit meant to pound the pulpit. I don't think so. It means that these are added words by translators, with the help of. There's no Hebrew for with the help of. It just says, I've gotten a man, the Lord. So Eve's instincts were the same as the interpretation I've just given you here. She thought she was receiving the Messiah. She was right in her aspirations. She was wrong in her timing. It was a little premature, but she wanted to have the Messiah.
Take a moment, and why is it that this applies to Jesus?
This applies to Jesus because he was the one who was born not through natural descent, through a woman knowing a man, but by a special work of the Holy Spirit. Therefore, the phrase then will apply in a very special way, the seed of a woman. And more than that, too, it is this same Messiah who will come as everybody. The Jewish people and Christians all agree. Wait till you see when he comes in the time of peace. And there's where he will put down evil. Romans 16:20. Paul, writing to the church, says, now may the God of peace crush Satan under the foot of all of you shortly. So that the victory that Messiah will have is also the victory for the whole believing community, Jewish and Christian alike, if they believe in Messiah.
Is there any evidence in the text that, 1800 or whenever this was written, when Moses put it down, that he had an idea that this was special?
I think there is an indication here. The very fact that you go in verse 14, a curse, verse 16, a curse, verse 17, verse 18, verse 19, but as they often do in the prophets, they'll go like a funeral dirge, boom, 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 one sort of indictment, another indictment, a third indictment, but yet in that day there come these rosy-tinted prophecies, and that changing of the gears very fast. Some modern scholars say you can't have hope and judgment in the same context. You've got to separate them out. But there's such overwhelming evidence now, not only in the Bible, but also in other kinds of literature, that we've got to see them together.